Hey everybody, welcome to the Herd Fit Podcast with Dr. Sam Rhee and myself, Coach David Syvertsen. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset.
All right, welcome back to the Herd Fit Podcast. We have a special guest with us again, with myself, Coach David Syvertsen, and Dr. Sam Rhee. We have Coach Mike DelaTorre. We're in the middle of the table. Mike is a very special person to myself personally, but also to CrossFit Bison. He started coaching here pretty much right before the pandemic, so he brought a lot of good luck over here. But I've known Mike since 2012, 2013 era when he started working at CrossFit Hoboken, and I was a member there, an athlete there, and here we are almost 10 years later, and we're working at the same gym, and we always kind of discuss this on the side. It's kind of been destiny that we'd be pair up coaching. Just we have a lot of similar outlooks at CrossFit and similar kind of approaches to coaching, and which is really important. And before we have a lot of topics that we're going to talk to Mike about, but we really want to dive into Mike first. If you're listening to this, odds are you're probably a member at CrossFit Bison. You get coached by Mike at some point. And Mike is he's a very unique person. He's a very good coach. And I think that the more you get to know about him and his background, where he's coming from, understanding his why, I think that you can benefit from his style of coaching even more so.
He's the most experienced CrossFitter we have, right?
Yeah.
Do we know anyone else who's done it longer?
Laura Thierry might challenge us on that. But I know that Mike is probably, Mike and Thierry are probably the only people that have been involved with CrossFit since pre-2010, right?
Wow.
So yeah, like Mike, let's dive into the background a little bit and talk about maybe some of your life prior to CrossFit and then how it intersected with CrossFit.
Yeah. So I majored in art history in college. So if any of you are like, oh, did you study exercise science or anything? No, I studied paintings. So it's great because I do nothing with my major currently. But I got into coaching like really right out of high school. My former track coach needed somebody to be the throws coach on the track team. So I started coaching high school kids my freshman year of college. And that started my journey with fitness. And back then I trained like a typical dude. Just like bodybuilder, meathead style.
Bro lift. Nothing
Bro
wrong with that.
No, I see nothing wrong with that. And I started working at a gym, but just as like a manager there and then as a personal trainer. And I met a buddy, his name is Jeff Thorne. And I believe he's still in the service. He was training to be in the service. At first he wanted to go into the SEALs, but then I believe he went into the Rangers and he was doing CrossFit. I did like research and stuff as a trainer. So I knew what CrossFit was. I just didn't know how to get started. So he gave me a workout. And he was like, dude, do this workout. It's 20 minutes long. And you got to get as many rounds as you can. 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 air squats. So the workout's Cindy. And I remember, dude, I will never forget this. I asked him, how much weight on the squat? He was like, no weight, just no weight, man, just your own body weight. And at least I thought so, like pretty fit at the time. I was like, I'm going to kill this and get 20 rounds. I got like 6.5 rounds. And that's when I was hooked. And I was like, wow, there's something to this. And that was October of 2008.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then from that point on, back then, I think there were like 3 gyms in New Jersey. So you followed CrossFit.com.
Right.
So every morning I'd wake up, I'd see what the workout is, and I'd do the workout of the day.
Which is cool because back then, right? Like you never knew the workout until literally the day that you woke up.
Yeah.
Right. Like, there was no programming sent to you ahead of time. There was no like, I need this equipment for that workout. It was just like, here's the workout and I'm going to go do it.
Yeah. There'd be some nights I would like wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and I just check my phone, like, all right, what am I doing this morning?
I still do that.
Yeah, man. So I just dove head first and then I decided to get my level 1. I took it the first time in March of 2009.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. I took it down in Gorilla Fitness in Montclair. And I remember when I took it, I was super, super excited. I had not experienced anything like it because I was doing all my workouts in a regular gym and just a Globo gym.
Right.
And I brought the idea back to the owners of the gym. I was like, I pitched it like a money-making thing, which makes sense. I was like, look, all I need is a little space. There's this CrossFit thing. I think it can be like really profitable for the gym. And I will never forget this. I remember them saying, hey man, we love that you're like super excited about this, but we just don't think that it's going to take off. Yeah,
They messed up.
they definitely did, because they actually ended up leaving that gym like a few years later. But anyways, it's all good. So at that point, what I did was I was still coaching track and field at the time.
Okay.
I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to train my friends and any of the track athletes that they want. I'm going to coach them through CrossFit. And I started this little group. I just did it for free. I didn't care. I just wanted to coach. And we met Tuesdays and Thursdays at the Roseville Catholic track in the afternoon. And I just put them through workouts.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And
It's amazing how even all these years later, I mean, that's what, 12, 13 years ago, how that approach to CrossFit is still totally cool and acceptable. Like, just get a few people together, no background needed. They don't need to be the same kind of athletes, same kind of goals. And you can just throw something together, and it doesn't need to take an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. It could be 15, 20, 30 minutes in and out. And it's that group fitness feel.
yeah. It was, the biggest thing was, like you said, man, that group fitness feel, that feeling of like basically the group against the workout.
Right.
So everyone fed off of that energy, which is really cool.
Right. That's really cool. So you're at this stage, I mean, you're approaching 2010 and you're doing this for free. And we always recommend people that they're trying to get into a field, like that's a lot of times where you start, where you just gain the experience, and that is your paycheck, the experience, right? And then over time, you start looking at this like, all right, I'm putting a lot of time, thought, effort, energy into this, and I need some income. How did you first find the first gym that you worked at? Was that Morristown?
Yeah.
Okay. So how did they find you? How did you find them?
So I remember I started the group in, I think it was like March of 2009 once I got rejected. And I just did it through the summer. And it was November, I think the second week of November of 2009. It was starting to get like really dark. So I was like, guys, I think we're going to it's like, we're going to have to put this on hold, I think maybe until the spring.
Yeah.
And one of the last workouts I did, a friend of a friend brought Leo Munoz. He was a coach at CrossFit Morristown.
Okay.
He brought him to one of the workouts. He's like, hey man, my buddy's a coach. He wants to work out with us if that's cool. I was like, yeah, for sure. And I remember the workout was like running and burpees. I remember there being like 400-meter runs and a bunch of burpees. And I just put everyone through the workout. He was super cool. We said our goodbyes and then that was it. And I didn't think, much of it. And maybe like 2 weeks later, I got a voicemail. I got a call and I didn't pick up because I didn't recognize the number. So I was like, oh, I'm picking this up. So, but luckily he left a voicemail and it was Leo. And he was like, hey man, Kariana of CrossFit Morristown and CrossFit Bernardsville, she's looking for a coach. And I told her about you. If you're interested in coaching, she'd like to meet up. And I remember I was at the Globo gym at the time. I was in the middle of a shift. I was having a bad day. Cause you know how it is, like being a manager, like you have to deal with the like stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember just like sitting there looking at my phone, like, oh man, this is what I've been waiting for the longest time. Cause dude, I'd put out feelers. I'd like emailed the gyms in New Jersey at the time. Like, hey, do you need a coach? You need a coach.
Right.
And they said no, which is fine. I totally get it.
Yep.
And then he called. So I was like, all right, let's do it.
That's where the opportunity comes. Like, you just always have to be ready for that opportunity, and you just don't get to decide when it's going to come, but you keep plugging away, you keep testing yourself, and there you are. So Motown, just for everyone that does not know, CrossFit Morristown is still around to this day. Carrie-Ann is still the owner there. And it's, I would say, one of the more well-known gyms even in the country, just because, I mean, Dave Castro supports them a lot with their shirts. Like, he puts that on Instagram. Yeah. And was like his right-hand woman at the games for a long time, just like his assistant. And I think they've hosted several seminars there, level 1 seminars, quite a number. And I had a presence in competitive CrossFit for a while. And I think a gym, any CrossFit that's been around for more than 10 years at this point, there's a lot of respect from the outside given to them, because that means they've done it right for a long time. And, they're still trucking. That means people are still going there and attracted to what they do. So Mike did coach. I think that's part of what made Mike a good coach. He started at the right spot. Like, especially now, maybe not so much back then, there are and have been bad CrossFits out there that if you coached at it, it doesn't really mean that much, right? But if someone came here, even to this day, and said, yeah, I coach at CrossFit Morristown, you immediately know in your head, like, all right, there's a standard at that gym that Mike followed, that they were attracted to Mike, and then Mike worked under for a long time, that really gives him a good base to work with.
How did you get into the competitive side of CrossFit at that point? Because you did go to the 2011 regionals with CrossFit Morristown. So describe a little bit of what that was like, that high-end sort of competitive CrossFit.
So I remember watching the CrossFit Games. There was a documentary on the 08 Games called Every Second Counts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really funny because like it's on YouTube. So back then when I was watching, I was like, oh man, this is so cool. Like these athletes are so good. But then like, if you guys watch it now, I mean, the athletes are still good, but you look at some people's form, it's like, oh man, CrossFit's definitely evolved.
Yeah.
So that got me into it. I was like, it'd be really cool to do that one day. And then I remember watching the 09 Games, and I was like, and the game was totally different back then. I was like, I can probably do this if I train hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it became. I remember watching like Jason Khalipa and Miko Salo, and like Pat Sherwood was in the games then.
Mm-hmm.
And like watching these guys, I'm like, man, like I really, really look up to these guys. I bet I can get there if I train hard enough. So that's how that started. And at Morristown, with Kariana being like super involved, and she's a very good athlete.
Yeah. Yep.
She really pushed us like in a good way. She motivated us. That's what I'm trying to say, to train.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a really good group of people there, not just athletically, but also just like good people. And I remember we made it to regionals in 2010. I think it was, I forget what the criteria was. I think you just had to sign up if you were like a part of a team.
Okay.
And then in 2011, that's when the Open started, and we qualified for it. You know, for
So back then, just so people don't know, like back then the CrossFit Open, and this is still true to this day, the team numbers were different back then. There were 6 people,
Mm-hmm.
but the way you would qualify for regionals, right? The regionals was the one stage after the CrossFit Open. And basically your top 3 guy scores and your top 3 girl scores would combine for your team score.
From your affiliate.
From your affiliate, yeah. And that would, so that you would get a rank every week. And if you were at one of the top 40 teams?
60.
Wow, 60 teams.
Yeah.
Mother. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
That's 360 people showing up for team. Wow.
Yeah.
So you have 60 teams making it to regionals from the CrossFit Open, and CrossFit Morristown ended up being one of those 60 teams that made it to that stage.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about the workouts, and because if we're comparing then and now, like what you thought about that. I remember I talked to Tim Carroll about the individuals, and they were still hella bad. Like there were some very, very, very challenging workouts. So the first workout was a team workout for time, 4 people rowing at 750 meters, 50 handstand push-ups, and then another row for 750 meters. Do you remember that one?
Yes, I remember. I didn't participate in that one, but I remember that one.
Okay. Because not everyone participated in every workout, but then 4 did, and then 2 who didn't had to compete in the second workout.
Right.
Which was a thruster ladder, which you competed in, right? And so the men's weights were 155 pounds, 165, 175, 185, 195, 205, and then 215 all the way up to 295. And you had 20 seconds to one attempt,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had 10-second interval, and then you had another 20 seconds to make one attempt. If you did not make that attempt, you would basically wash out at that point. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. And it was 1 man and 1 woman on the team who did it.
Mm-hmm.
So you were the thruster guy.
I was a thruster guy, and that's a nice name.
So why were you the thruster guy instead of the row handstand push-up guy? But were you the best thruster guy on the team?
I was at the time. I was good at thrusters.
Okay.
I was really good at thrusters, and I mean my engine has never been my strong suit, which is probably why I do so much engine stuff. Like 10 years later, why I do so much engine stuff now. So I was better at the like painful short burst type things.
So what was that like? So tell me about that workout for you.
It was really fun. It was really
You did all right. You did 26th out of like 25th or 26th out of like 40 some teams at the regionals. So that was a good showing for that So what'd you do?
The first thing was, I remember stepping out on the field, and it was at the Reebok headquarters up in Massachusetts.
Right. This competition was outdoors.
It was outdoors. Yeah, it was outdoors. So it was on the Reebok headquarters campus, and they made like a stadium essentially.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of platforms, all the weights around. And honestly, my first thought was, when I stepped out, like, what the hell am I doing? It was pretty cool. But then like the clock starts, and then you just go on autopilot from there. And it was like another workout. Like all the outside noise and all the like dumb pressure that you put on yourself, it just kind of goes away.
All right.
So that was like the biggest thing with that thruster ladder. I was just like, all right, man, like you've done this a million times. You just move. Just move.
Were you allowed to push jerk the press, or did it have to be like that single extension press at the top?
So that's a good question. It had to be like one smooth extension,
right?
And you couldn't move your feet.
Oh, that's right. That's what Tim Carroll said. That was a real sticking point with some people, because they'd make the thruster, but they'd move their feet a little bit and they would be DQ'd.
So are you saying you couldn't move the thruster after you caught the barbell in the squat? Like you could like pull from a spot and then land with wider feet, or your feet were literally not allowed?
I think you could land with wider feet.
Right.
You just couldn't like do the thruster and then like shuffle around.
Yeah. That's what I remember. It's funny that I never knew why. Kevin Yurchak at CrossFit West Essex, they used to run a really good comp, Rock the Wad, and they did a few years. And one year there was a max thruster, I think at the end of a workout. I don't, but you weren't allowed to move your feet. Now, and I had never heard that before. I'm like, where the hell did that come from? I guess that's where
regional standard.
That was probably only 3 years after that regionals. It was like 2014, 2015 era. So that's pretty cool.
And your check was there. And
yeah, your check was there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably why he was
awesome.
Traumatized by that. And
all right, so now that question's off my list.
Well, I remember because I think Rob Orlando, I think it was Rob Orlando.
Yeah.
He like won the event or like finished on the top 3, whatever.
Yeah.
But like he clearly moved his feet, and they have him on video.
Yeah.
The judge didn't call it. So people were like pissed about that or something.
Yeah, that's a shaky standard. Like I've been a part of a few comps in the past where the max thruster is tested, or squat clean thruster, and it evolved into, and we'll talk about this later on in this podcast about how just movement and all that has changed. But there are people like Dallas is one of them. Like he's so fast but he's not good at push pressing, but he's great at push jerking, right? Because he's fast underneath the barbell. So he would catch the squat clean, go up, and then he would basically just pop his hips and then get back underneath it and then stand it back up. It's like a very hard movement to do. Like you have to be a very fast twitch athlete to do it, but it definitely made a thruster to me is an extension of a push press and front squat.
Right. Just front squat straight into a push press.
More brute strength.
Yeah.
Right. That's skill.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to know like what that standard was. So you weren't even allowed to move your feet.
So it snaked, right? So you just kept going.
Yeah. You up the ladder until you tapped out.
And how far did you go before you tapped out?
I cannot remember.
Oh my God. I want to know.
Dude, I don't think it was that.
What do you think it was approximately?
I mean, you were 25th. Yeah. Like 25th place. That's pretty good.
That's great.
Pretty sure it was over 2. Yeah,
that's something to do, dude. Especially in a ladder, like you're doing a lot of reps in a matter of 5-6 minutes.
It was. I remember like people were joking around. And we were like, "Oh yeah, it's good because like you don't really need cardio for this." And literally two reps in, I was like, "Such bullshit." Man. I don't really need cardio for that.
Barbell cardio.
Yeah,
that's a lot of reps. And so also, while Sam's looking this up, the platforms that you have, wasn't it like basically a piece of plywood on grass?
So they made it was definitely plywood on grass. I can't remember if they made
anchored
an actual platform or I think it was just plywood.
Me too. I remember seeing pictures of it and I'm like, here I am years later and you're so like OCD about doing things right and being safe for the athlete's sake. Like that would be another factor that would make it would really tough to not move your feet because you're on an unstable surface with grass blades instead of concrete. Right, like right now at the Rogue Invitational, which is going on right now.
Yeah,
they have. Last night they did a Bella Complex, which is a squat clean and jerk, front squat, and then another jerk. And they had these like really like fancy platforms for every single athlete. And like this is one of the ways it's evolved so much. They take so much care of like logistics and athlete safety.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's listed. You guys placed 26th in that workout, and the number must be an aggregate of you and your female athlete. says 320. So I don't know what she hit and I don't know what you hit on there.
What's her number? I'll set her up.
Text her right now and find out.
What'd you hit on your thrust?
So then did you do the third workout, which was 21, teams of two. So one man, one woman, deadlift box jumps, 275, 185, 30-inch box jumps, 24-inch for women, 25, 15, 9. So it's just like a very quick.
21, 59?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
You did that one too?
I did that one. And that is a huge reason why I don't like jumping on 30-inch boxes.
Did you crash?
No. Yeah, actually I did.
I feel like a lot of people did in that one.
I did. So I remember.
That would be really tough. Even now.
I mean, after the deadlifts, your legs must be like jello
And think about
jumping
it,
up.
back then the athletes are not what they are now. Like that must have been really tough.
Every time you program, and you do this a lot, box jumps and some friggin' lift movement.
Today.
Yes.
Today we went front squat. How'd you feel about today's workout, Sam?
Great. I watched it. I was at home looking at it and I was like, wow, I'm so glad that this was not something I did.
So I'm the same way. I hate jumping after anything leg intense. Hate it.
It's good. It's great training.
Yes.
And
Scare yourself.
You have to, well, I'm a softbox guy, so I don't really risk it, but it's awesome training to do that lift and then actually go back to the lift.
Right.
Because you really have to focus on your form.
Being explosive.
Both the box jump and the lift, because that plyometric like fast twitch, you gotta incorporate that.
Yeah.
So I love that. So you guys did all right too on that one. It was 26th place again and 1251. So again, an aggregate probably of you and your teammate on that one.
So Mike was probably like 2 minutes and the partner was probably like 10. Right?
I mean, 275 now is, and 185 for women, while heavy, is not like you'll program something like that on occasion.
Yeah.
Like maybe 225
about the most as we go. Yeah. In a workout that has 45, especially 21 straight.
Yeah. Like any open or regional type workout, it's going to be 315 plus
for sure.
No, yeah. And then the last workout that you guys did, I assume you didn't compete in because you already did workout 3, which was 250 chest to bar pull-ups, 250 kettlebell swings, double unders, and 250 overhead squats at 95, 65.
250
for 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, all right.
Yeah.
I thought it was 2. And that's Saturday. Right.
So as bad as the deadlift box jumps where you're like sitting there cheering your team, like, for workout 4.
I was done. Well, obviously we would have liked to move on, but like, it was nice to not do that workout. Although the funny thing is that's a workout that I would have liked to do because I like chipper style workouts like that.
Yeah.
They're fun.
Yeah. It's a good challenge.
Yeah. So what are your takeaways? Like, you think back about that whole time, like doing that, like what do you think about? Like,
I just think, I feel I'm super lucky to get into CrossFit that early because it's been really cool to see the evolution of the sport. Like, you take that 21-15-9 workout and it was a terrible workout for sure. It felt really bad, but you would probably see that program at a regular gym.
Yeah. We do 30-inch boxes and we do heavy deadlifts. So.
Dude, yeah. And same thing with that chipper workout, maybe like less reps if it's just 2 people working at it, but I could totally see something like that being programmed for sure on a Saturday here. And I do remember thinking to myself, like, I felt like I had imposter syndrome when I was there because like a lot of dudes I looked up to were there. Like Rob Orlando was there, Austin Malleola was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking to myself, the last day I was in the athlete area and I looked out onto the field and I was like, I'm never going to be here ever again. Like, I just wanted to do
that.
So like, I'm not like a great athlete. I just know how to like grind really hard. Like, I'm not a naturally gifted athlete. You know what I mean? Like, I have decent strength. Really, that's about it. I'm not very springy. I'm not very coordinated. If you guys ever see me like try to catch something, I'll just like knock it down. But like, I just kind of knew that eventually, like, really good, naturally athletic people are going to start coming in. And I'd say 2012, when we didn't make it to regionals in 2012, that's what I knew. I was like, it's really going to start changing.
Right. Yeah, because you did see, I mean, you could probably, I don't want to speak for you, just tell me if I'm right. Like, you saw CrossFit, it was like, that's when it's really started to boom. So like, not even from the competitive perspective, just from the gym perspective. Like, your gym was probably growing, classes getting bigger, more people getting involved. And naturally that filters over into the competitive side, because the competitive CrossFit is a bullet point under CrossFit. So if CrossFit itself is growing, competitive side will also grow.
Right. Exactly.
And then tell me, you transitioned from Morristown to Hoboken, and Hoboken is where I feel like it was the wellspring of a lot of what I see in my experience of CrossFit in North Jersey. Is a lot of people came out of Hoboken. Everyone who was anyone they came forth from that place and seeded a lot of other places all over the place. And it seems like that was a huge central point at that time. How did you end up leaving Motown and going to Hoboken then?
Well, I didn't leave Motown on great terms.
I could tell in his facial expressions. I mean, we don't even need to go into that deep details. I don't think we should, to be honest with you. But so it wasn't a great ending, right?
No, it wasn't a great ending. I wish, and both parties like could have handled things differently.
Live and learn, Mike.
Live and learn. Yeah, exactly, dude. And then I lucked out, man. I got Martha Mistretta.
Yep.
She was, friends with Cariana, and that's how I met her. We were on the regional team together,
right?
Motown. She ended up moving to Hoboken, and then was, going to and coaching at CrossFit Hoboken. And she heard that I wasn't at Motown anymore. And her husband Caesar went to Craig Parcells, the founder and owner of CrossFit Hoboken at the time, and they were like, "Hey, man, you should hire this guy, Mike." And I remember I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I actually was considering not coaching anymore. I was like, I don't know if I want to coach again. I was thinking about moving out to Colorado, to be honest with you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But then my stepdad got sick. So I was like, all right, like I gotta stay home. I got the call from Craig, and same thing. Like I remember a random number. I was like, I'm not picking this number up. And then it was Craig. He was like, "Hey man, it's Craig from CrossFit Hoboken. I just want to see if you are interested in coaching." Went down there and, met him. And I started in June. My first workout was June 6th of 2012.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's first workout I coached there.
Yeah. Mike's first time at Hoboken just to come see the place. He came during a class. I'm pretty sure it was a Saturday. And I was working out in that class. I remember he was just like, him and his big ass smile was just sitting on a box, just like this. It was like it was almost like a Bison Saturday, just a lot of people, a lot of things going on, going nuts. And like, you could tell he was like eating it up. He loved it. And me and my buddy Mike Dill were like, who the hell's that guy? He was like jacked too. And it's like whatever. I'm like, typical guy. So bro, get out of here, bro. You're not even working each other up, Yeah. And I remember like Craig actually just called me this past week, and I keep in touch with him, not on a regular basis, but every now and then we'll hit each other up. And you can say a lot of good things about Craig. I mean, he did grow up Hoboken, like almost like to like an epicenter of New Jersey CrossFit, and where a lot of people came from. They had over 400 members at one point.
Wow.
And
in that little rickety place.
And Craig was just he was a pretty aggressive decision maker with like knocking walls down, making the gym bigger, getting an extra room. He never got a permit. Just like literally went to the landlord. Is like, I'll take that room. I'm not getting variance or anything like that. And he did the same thing with coaching. Like, I think at one point we had like 22 coaches on the staff.
We had a ton of coaches. Yeah.
And he was good at, he had balls with he just like made hard, fast decisions and never overthought it. And I remember him saying it was like, Mike was one of the best decisions he ever made. So it was pretty cool.
I was really happy to be there.
So fast forward through that time, and then like, I don't want to dissect every little part of your life.
That's fine. So for sure.
Accelerate us through Hoboken to Bison then. How did that arc go for you?
So I remember when I first got to Hoboken, I mean, like you said, like so many people came out of there.
Yep.
And that's where I met Dave, Taff, Cristofaro,
your wife.
My wife. Shit. my wife.
We're only talking about CrossFit. That's why she wasn't the first one.
Yeah. Sorry. Dude, so many people. But then like Hoboken's it's a young town, but typically no one stays there forever.
Yes.
So I remember
a lot of turnover.
Dave and Chris were like, "Oh yeah, we're going to start our own gym." And I was like super happy for him, but like, I was also like really mad. I was like, "Oh, that sucks. They're going to leave eventually." I was there for almost 4 years, I believe. And it was just my time to go. A couple factors happened. I got hurt training like an idiot. And I'm sure we'll probably talk about this. And this is where the difference between competitive CrossFit and general training come in, right? Like I did something that I shouldn't have been doing. I got hurt really badly. And I started going to physical therapy to get better. And I feel like at that point I needed a change.
Yeah.
Now I've been coaching CrossFit for so long that I needed something different.
Yeah.
So that's when I went to Parabolic Performance and Rehab, and I was a strength coach there for a short period of time. And I learned a ton of stuff there, which is really cool.
Very different side of fitness, but also probably a lot of things there that we miss out on at CrossFit that are very important, I would say.
Yeah. There's definitely stuff there. Like there's, when you're working with an athlete that plays, say like professional football or baseball or whatever, I mean, the way that you train them is definitely a lot different than the way that you train a general person for sure. So I learned a lot of stuff, which is cool, but I got that itch again to come back to CrossFit. So then I started coaching part-time at CrossFit Caldwell, where Martha was. Craig, when he left Hoboken, Craig and Martha founded CrossFit Caldwell. So I started there, more went there. And then eventually that turned into a full-time gig. Like I wanted to get back into CrossFit full-time. So fast forward through that, I was there for a couple of years, and same thing. Like I just needed, certain things happened and I just needed something different. And I remember, like I always told Melissa, I always wanted to be here at Bison. I remember back in 2014 at the old space when you guys had the grand opening party, a whole bunch of us from Hoboken went up there.
Yeah, that was probably 85% of who was in attendance at there. So our crew from Hoboken came out.
Yeah, dude.
We looked a lot cooler than we did. So like the wire tracks were there to check out Bison, and we had like 40 people there, and I'm like, none of them are going to be here. But I didn't want them to know. Yeah, no, they're all members. Yeah.
And dude, I remember like, it was so fun. We did Fight Gone Bad. I remember that being the workout.
Awesome. Yeah.
And Melissa couldn't come because she was working. And when she got home, she was like, how was it? And I remember saying to her, I was like, look, if I ever leave Hoboken, that's where I want to coach. So yeah, there was that. There was like the open in I think it was 2017 in this space. Yeah, was it this space?
No.
It was the old space. Yeah. It was like rowing and wall balls. And like
19-1.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was 2019. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was the last open at Old Bison.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah. That's right. That
was a nasty workout. Yeah.
I remember like the vibe was insane. I hadn't experienced something like that since old school, like since CrossFit Marsan and old school Hoboken.
Yeah. There's nothing like that. Like we're going to get that back this year. Hopefully. Like we've been like put a couple like event things on hold this year. Just, we make decisions on events. It's usually like late summer, early fall. And just with COVID stuff, we're still not sure, but we're 99% confident we're going to be bringing back the open party in February this year for like the 22.1. And there's nothing like that environment.
Yeah, dude, it was awesome. And I remember you guys like kind of ruined CrossFit in a sense for me, because I was like, oh man, I'm not going to get this anywhere else. And fast forward again, like when everything was happening, I reached out to Chris and reached out to Dave. And I ended up coming here, and I haven't looked back.
And it's funny, like when Mike says that, like, oh, I really want to be there someday. Like Chris and I remember when we first started, that was like in our discussion, not even in a shady way. Like we're not the kind of guys, and we never have been, we never will be, that would go to a coach at coaching at another gym and be like, yo, we'll give you more money. Like we didn't have any money to like give. So like we couldn't, like Chris and I coached, and Ash coached almost all the classes, and we had 45 classes a week, for 50 classes a week when we started, and we did all of them for like almost a year. And then we started hiring some people, and even then that was only 2-3 classes per week that they were helping out with, and we just didn't have the money to pay Mike. And he's at that point getting married and having kids. Like you can't just be like, yeah, I'll come and work for free. So if the decision was ours only and money wasn't an object, we would have probably got him in there 4 or 5 years ago, and the stars aligned about a year and a half ago.
Yeah. I want to go through your profiles on social media because I looked at them and I thought they were interesting, and maybe you could explain a little bit of it real quick. So your CrossFit profile says husband, father, coach, and friend, which I understand. Proud to be part of the herd at CrossFit Bison, God, country, and heavy ass weight, which is great. And then your benchmark stats, and then you can comment on these a little bit. I know you got injured. Back squat 400 pounds, clean and jerk 260, snatch 188, and deadlift 500. So those numbers, are they still holding? Are they not holding? What would you want to say about those?
The snatch number, definitely not holding.
188 pounds, Nick.
No, when I snatch now, it's really just for demonstration purposes. The back squat I haven't tested in like 6 years. Realistically, I think the heaviest I've hit in recent times is 335.
That's not bad.
It was okay. Like, taking into consideration just where I am at, like in terms of how often I train the squat and everything.
Right.
The deadlift is my party trick for sure. So like, I'm under 500, but I'm pretty close if I'm willing to bet.
There are a bunch of guys, older guys here at Bison that deadlift insane amounts of weight.
Yeah.
Like you, Jay, Swing Set Jay.
Oh, Swing Set Jay.
Yeah, he's like
He's sneaky strong. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's sneaky strong.
Yeah.
You got Taff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the deadlift is probably my favorite lift because it's from an athlete perspective, not from a coaching perspective, but I just feel like it is the most functional thing and it carries over into so many other movements. Like there's nothing like a heavy deadlift day, like the feeling you have after, because everything is so engaged. And I guess if you're a puller or a squatter, like I just feel safer going for like a really heavy deadlift than I do a heavy squat. When you fail, like all you gotta do is drop it. Like get your hands off the bar. Back squat, there's a few things that can go wrong.
I used to think the opposite. I used to think, oh man, like the squat is safer. And it's like, like you said, like with the deadlift, you just got to drop it.
Yeah,
Just drop the bar.
let it go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fran time of 4:33.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Well, I remember with the Fran, man, like the last time I did that, like the last time I PR'd, I mean, my shoulders were like 100% healthy. Like my pull-ups are so much faster. Thrusters were so much faster. Like anything with shoulder overhead or hanging on the rig now, I have to go
Really careful.
really careful. Yeah. Just like a measured pace.
Controlled.
Yeah, dude.
Your Twitter profile, coach, athlete, friend, #CrossFit, angry, #Knicks fan, disappointed New York Rangers fan, sad New York football fan, passionate Red Sox fan. Sometimes I say bad words. New Jersey, USA.
So, yes. So all of those things pretty much still apply,
Yeah.
especially the bad words part. Like I'm really trying hard not to just like say bad words right
You've been
now.
good so far.
Yeah, I have a sailor's mouth. I was just telling the 815 class.
That's a
that
gym
too.
thing. I feel like
I
just
think
is.
so too.
Just is. You hear it all the time. Like you're around just like
Fucking shit.
all the time.
Yeah.
Whether it's a celebration or a voice of frustration, it's just kind of like your environment.
And I've never had a normal job. Like I was just listening to I read Anthony Bourdain's book Kitchen Confidential.
Great guy, yeah.
Yeah. And I started listening to the audio version just because like I've always admired him. And one of the things he says in his book is he doesn't know how to act out of the kitchen, right? He doesn't know like how to act in the normal world. And it's kind of how I feel sometimes. Yeah, I don't
I
know.
can relate to that for sure.
In
Right?
gym, out of gym, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, aren't you like some people are like we're both kind of introverts like outside of the gym, and like it's so funny how people are like, how can you consider yourself an introvert with what you do? I'm like, it's just a separate life. I'm like, it's like I don't really know how to be that social outside the gym sometimes. Where in the gym you have to be because it's your job. But it's a huge part of just like your professional coach, and that's why you are the way you are. And you probably wouldn't respond well to a corporate setting on a day-to-day basis.
No.
Or you might actually make your corporate setting better by bringing your gym culture into that.
Yeah, it could be.
I will say I fist bump everybody now.
Oh, do you?
Uh-huh.
That's cool.
And I go to like soccer games and there are like other guys are looking at me like, that's sort of weird, but
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, a bunch of readers. Like they heard it's like this, like this. Like shaking their hand, and I'm just like, it's what I do now. So, bro. Yeah.
So then your IG profile says Mike DelaTorre, coach at CrossFit Bison. And then you have, and this is what I really wanted to ask you about, the Om symbol and then the Wheel of Dharma, which is two emojis representing the symbol of oneness. And the Wheel of Dharma is a wheel-shaped symbol divided into 8 equal parts, representative of Buddhism or the road to the soul. Very spiritual, which I never see that often at the gym. So I wanted to ask you about that a little bit.
So years ago, I started following a YouTube channel called Barbell Shrugged.
Yeah.
And back then they were super, super involved with CrossFit.
Very, yeah.
And the original crew included this guy, his name is Chris Moore. And Chris Moore had an offshoot podcast called Barbell Buddha that I was like, I'm still like really into. And it was really interesting because on Barbell Shrugged, Chris Moore could be like, I could see how people could find him like kind of annoying because he always like interrupted and like he had like all these ideas in his head. He didn't know how to like exactly interject smoothly, I guess. But then so he comes off. Plus, he was an old school like ex powerlifter. So he kind of comes off like a stupid meathead sometimes, I guess. But then you listen to Barbell Buddha, and he was a really deep guy. And a lot of the stuff that he says, he talks about coaching and he ties that into life and how coaching is much more. I'm sure like the three of us can agree on this, man. Like coaching is much more than just the knowledge that you have.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, there's so many other factors that go into being a good coach, namely being able to make connections with people.
Yeah.
So that was something he was really big on. So I've been like heavily influenced by him just in terms of like outlook and for sources of like inspiration and knowledge. And another thing that hit me about him was he would have been my age. He passed away in 2016, I think it was. And for me, like oddly hit me hard because he was a guy who was my age and he was really starting to come into his own.
Right.
At that point, he had come out with a few books. He had moved to Europe and he was, getting his podcast going and he was going to do all this stuff. And then boom, like that, he was gone. So for me, that was a signal to, and honestly, man, like that probably started the process of, man, I don't know if I was at Parabolic at the time. It's right. I don't know if Parabolic really is the last stop.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah. It's interesting. Was he by himself on Barbell Buddha, that podcast?
Yeah. He was just
probably why, like, you responded to that podcast a lot better than the one that he was on with others, right? Like just another guy that is at the end of the day an introvert. He probably does his best work when he's by himself.
Yeah. It's he's funny because he talks about that. Like he's really, while on the podcast, especially Barbell Shrugged, it comes off as like big and like really loud. He was very shy, very introverted, which we definitely are. Like,
so, we want to flip back into the CrossFit then and now. And one of the things I wanted to comment on is when I was looking at all these older 2011 pictures and stuff, the first thing I want to say is that the clothing was so different. People wore some of the weirdest shit, pardon my French. Like you think about now and the noble aesthetic and like these muted colors and these really slick looking clothes. Then it was like baggy shorts, like Converse high tops.
The Ryan Radcliffe.
Yeah. The tie-dye, like high stockings, like just all this stuff that is classic 2010, 11, 12 CrossFit that you never see anymore. And I was like, why don't we wear that stuff anymore?
Asics running shoes.
Like, why don't we do that? So just thinking about that, when you think about your coaching then and your coaching now, like what do you notice is the biggest difference? I'm sure the energy probably always has to be there, right? Because coaching has energy.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I was thinking about this stuff last night because I was reading through like the topics and everything for today. And I remember something like really bothered me a few years ago. I was talking to a friend from CrossFit Morristown. This is like 10 years ago now. And we were talking about the coaches at the gym, right? And he's like, oh yeah, like so-and-so is this guy, so-and-so is the other guy, and you're the energy guy. But like he made it sound like that's all I did was like fucking run around the room and like yell at people.
A cheerleader. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm definitely not just the energy guy, man.
Yeah.
Like it got me like really mad.
Yeah.
But I will say that like you always have to bring good energy to the gym. So that has not changed.
Right.
Like there's times where I'm listening out again to a fight or the kids are being really hard or we all go through like our own shit outside of the gym. But over the years, I've definitely gotten better at leaving that outside because there's been times when I was younger, when I was like a younger coach, like a newer coach, I would take that energy and I would leave most of it at the door, but I'd bring some of it into the gym. And even if there's like a little bit of that, I feel like people can tell.
Yep. You've talked about how that's hard, Dave. Like,
Oh yeah,
when you're not feeling great about doing a class and you do the class, and
for sure. Yeah. And it's, again, that's what being a professional coach is. That's actually probably going to be one of our topics on one of our upcoming episodes with Mike, is just the biggest mistakes coaches make. So I don't want to give too much of a spoiler, but I do think that's, when Mike started at Hoboken, I remember his first few classes, like, he was running around the gym. He was dripping in sweat after, getting on his knees, like supporting and yelling and giving cues. And we talked about him, like, we were like, he's showing off. Like, there's no way he's going to sustain this kind of ability to coach like that. Like, because honestly, like, we couldn't do it. So it's like, I can't do it, so he can't do it. And he did it, and he still does. He's very into coaching. And we did a podcast saying with Botox and burpees, like different coaching styles.
yes,
And I think the sign of, to me, my opinion, the sign of an elite coach is the one that can change their coaching style at the snap of a finger,
right.
based on the workout, what the gym is going through, who they're coaching, right? And that's what he does really well. And maybe that's not what he was able to do when he was an early coach. Like, the outside perspective is, yes, Energizer buddy, but that's only the coach really knows, like, what their true mindset and intentions are. And it's only proven over time. And I think that's a big part of it. Like, Mike's been doing this for so long, longer than any of us.
Right.
That's where, you know, that background of knowing where CrossFit was back then and what was expected from a coach versus what is expected from a coach now is different.
What do you think about athletes? Are athletes the same now as they were back then?
In terms of like skill set or
Anything?
well, from a skill set perspective, way more advanced now.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I remember, like, I think we've talked about it. Like, back when I first started, like, if you could snatch 155 or like even 135, you were like a god.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God.
There's plates on that bar.
He's got the big wheels on the bar.
Do you remember the scoreboard? We tried this at Bison and it just didn't work. But it was a all-time gym leaderboard of all the benchmark workouts that Hoboken had.
Oh yeah.
So it had like Fran, Grace, Isabel.
A lot of gyms have that.
Yeah, it would post like the best times in the gym for that workout.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at it. Like, I used to look at that thing. Oh, I wanted my name up there, Hoboken.
I know,
so badly.
Me too, man.
And that's like Fran back then, 2159 thrusters and pull-ups. We did it this fall. It's coming back soon, this winter, before the new year. And the fastest times, if you were in the threes, you were like if you were sub 4, you were like, dude,
Elite.
you are going to regionals, or you're a monster. If you're not sub 3 now, like, it's like,
No shot.
no shot. Like, I stood Matt alone with my 2 eyes, did it in 159. You know, like, and like part of that's how he's built, like just the anatomy, like he just like short femur, short forearms, and like can just fly through everything. But
And a very good athlete.
yeah,
Like,
no,
mentally.
fastest slaughter I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, like he's gifted.
Very gifted.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I think that's one of the biggest things. It's like all these benchmarks that you were around in 2000, even up until 2015, like they keep getting beat.
Yeah.
I think I think snatch is a great example because that's so technique dependent, right? So it doesn't matter what your strength is, your form, like really, really
Just to be honest, up to you. Yeah.
yeah.
Sure.
Which is
Sure.
why and we've talked about this, why like squat snatches, for example, are not something that everyone should be doing because it's so technique dependent. It takes a lot of skill. It's a very high skill movement.
Yeah.
They've added a lot of movements into CrossFit that maybe you didn't see back then as well, which we're routinely doing now too. Like, were you routinely doing bar muscle ups, ring muscle ups, like all that crap?
Definitely not bar muscle ups. Ring muscle ups, like, they started to really gain traction. And I remember, like, once, like, if you had your ring muscle up, you always wanted to do them. So, like, I did them fairly often because I thought it was the coolest thing. But it's also interesting because, like, I remember, like, if you had a ring muscle up, if you could do handstand push-ups, it was like, oh my God, this guy's so good.
Yeah. Just like 5 in a row.
Like,
Like,
yeah. Now it's just like literally almost I feel every person in Bison could like go upside down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's definitely changed. Like, and it makes sense, right? Like, the sport's evolved, and with that, like, when there's good coaching and good programming, that has to evolve as well.
Yeah.
So you just see the level of athletes like just increase. That's definitely changed.
How about you discuss in relation to that, how the quality of coaching and just understanding how to coach movements and progress people, understanding the methodology behind CrossFit. Like, I've always been around good coaches. Like I'm blessed from that respect. Like my coaches at Hoboken, like I think about like Maris and Stefan and Martha and Mike. Like I had good coaches. So I feel like I had a little bit of like an easier curve than some. But the coaching back then was not nearly as technical and as deep as it is now.
Yeah. So it's interesting, right? Like it's definitely a lot more technical. Definitely a lot more technical, like especially with stuff like the Olympic lifts, gymnastics for sure. But it's also, it's like both ends of the spectrum too, right? Like with all that like technical knowledge, you have to be able to break it down like super easily. So that's been one of the big challenges, and I love it. Like one of the big challenges of coaching is, all right, man, here is some new technique stuff that you want people to do. What's the easiest way to present it so that people actually get it?
Yeah.
I feel like there's so much more information out there too.
Yeah, right. So much more.
Yeah. So like even on Instagram, and I've taken like a little hiatus on Instagram just because like there's just too much like bullshit on it.
Yeah.
But like people like,
it's good education.
It's dude, like Juggernaut, Catalyst Athletics. I forget how to pronounce her name. Pamela Lagon or something.
Mm-hmm.
She's a CrossFit like gymnastics person. There's so much knowledge out there now compared to back then, where back then you really just relied on the sources that CrossFit presented to you, right? So like you had CrossFit weightlifting with Coach Bergner and that kind of stuff, like CrossFit endurance with I think Brian McKenzie at the time. Mm-hmm. Not that stuff was bad by any means. Right. Like, it was great, but that was like really the only avenue that you had or that you were aware about.
Yeah.
Now
there's just
everywhere.
Just less material.
Yeah.
And in good and it's a good and bad thing that social media wasn't as big as it was back then. So there really was not as much. Yeah. There's just less volume of stuff out there. Like I felt like when I was starting and I was trying to learn some of this stuff, I would just go on YouTube and there was not a lot of instruction on YouTube. I would just watch people do workouts that had snatches in it and you just try to teach yourself. Like that's how I learned the butterfly pull-up. I remember watching Joey Dill in the middle of a workout. I'm like, okay, so he sends his feet there, then he waits and then he pulls, then he kicks back. Like there wasn't a lot of like, but right now there's a lot of like material that you can find on the internet that can help you break down the movement in so many different ways that, okay, I can eventually get this. But also think about this, like in the open back then, there was no scaled until I think the scaled open, the first scale, I want to say 2015, I think. It might have been 2014. It was one of those 2 years. And so that's 3 to 4 years of the CrossFit Open not having a scaled division. So think about right now, like when we do an open workout here, we probably have 30% of our gym do the scaled version. And imagine that did not exist.
Yeah.
And like, that's like, I don't want to call it an irresponsible thing by CrossFit at all. Like that's a sport and that's what it separated sport and fitness all the time. But to get people involved, you had to come up with scaled divisions. Now there's age group, adaptive, teens, like there's so many different versions of every single open workout. And that's another way it's evolved. Just like the open in general, RX for scaled.
And it makes sense too, because since CrossFit has evolved from a technical standpoint, they needed to do a scale division.
Yeah, for sure.
For inclusivity. I mean, like you want people to participate and really, like as corny as it sounds, like experience the magic of the open, man. The open's really, really amazing.
And CrossFit has fought this. I don't think it's as much a fight anymore because again, time proves everything or disproves everything eventually. But CrossFit had a bad rap for a long time about just like injury rates and honestly, it was irresponsible for some people to do what they were doing from 2010 to 2014. It wasn't really like Coach Mike's fault from Morristown. It's just what was fed from the top. Like people would be like, what's scaled? It's like, now it's like I push scaled on people more often than I push RX. And I've been that way for a while. Yeah. And I think that's a huge evolvement across it, that like scaled does not mean bad. RX does not mean good. And you still fight that with some people and their egos all the time, but that it's a much more acceptable and understanding thing now.
I think there's a couple reasons. One is you're right. CrossFit Home Office, or HQ as they used to call it, had a very rebel mentality. Pukey the clown. Yeah. Like Greg Glassman was an iconoclast. He would always like crap on everything else out there. And it was definitely, we're the rebels. We're shredding the rules. Yeah. We're doing things different. We have different lingo. We have different attitude. And definitely it was always about
pushing,
go
harder,
bro.
go hard.
Oh, God.
And I would say the first thing is because things have progressed to a very high standard. We talked about weight creep, about how the level of RX is increasing, how the level in general, you see it both on the sports side with these competitive athletes. They're doing stuff that was unheard of 3 years ago.
Unbelievable.
In terms of the numbers that they're pushing, the challenges they're facing. And even within our gym, our workouts now are definitely more challenging.
Sure.
And you look at, for example, just the regional workouts from 2011 and how they could, with a little adaptation, be a regular WOD at our gym now. So I think part of it is that RX is so challenging that for most of us, the stigma of not being RX is being lost.
Yeah.
The focus on injury prevention. The demographic is changing too. This is a mature industry now. If you were CrossFitting and you were 20 back in 2011, you're now 30. Or if you were 30, you're now 40.
Right.
So there's a big difference over that 10-year progression about how CrossFit Home Office approaches things, how we approach things, how you approach things, how we bring up our athletes. The thing I do like though is that these newer athletes, I think, are getting brought up to speed better, right? So we're teaching them technique better. They're learning quicker. Before, we never put people through going upside down as fast. Like, I swear to God, I've never seen so many new athletes go upside down so quickly. They might be doing 4 mats, but who cares?
Yeah, going upside down is a challenge in itself.
It's just, it's like, I see these people where I know 5 years ago, we would have had them doing strict dumbbell presses for a really long time. And now we're just like, yeah, why don't you try it? And they're like, okay. And they don't know any better. I think I've just read an article about CrossFit. Like, one of the things from an outsider's perspective is that oftentimes we don't necessarily put psychological limits on what we can do. When you work in Oli, when you work in some of these other fitness disciplines, you feel like there are limits. But then when you take someone, and this can be good, but it can also, it could be bad, but can also be good. And you're like, wow, look at these guys snatching 300. I should be able to snatch at least 200 for God's sakes. Why not? And many times they get there. Like, the barrier to what you think you can do, if you don't even know what that barrier is. I mean, how many times have we put plates on the barbell and then, like, we don't actually know what it is? And then it's better for us sometimes just not to know.
Oh, yeah.
And I think CrossFit still has that mentality of not necessarily knowing what our limits are or putting a hard number on something. And I think that has, in a safe way, progressed in CrossFit really well.
Well. There's that balance, and there has to be that balance. And I think a lot of it comes through coaching experience.
Yes.
Right. Like, coaching through years and years and seeing tons of athletes. And also, like, you've got to do CrossFit to coach it effectively. Right. Like, like, you have to know how things feel in order to get a good perspective.
Yep.
I'd say that a few years ago, like, one of the things that hindered my coaching ability with CrossFit was it was hard for me to work out with the class. And for whatever reason, I just, like, really lost motivation, like, even just to work out by myself.
Yeah.
So I just do like normal, like, bro lifts, like squat, deadlift, press, which is great. I was getting stronger, but I didn't have that perspective of how a workout felt and how the athletes would feel.
Right.
So having that perspective is really important, because, and knowing your athletes, obviously is very important, because then you know how to push them. Like, when someone is at their limit and they should not do, maybe they shouldn't go upside down yet, or they shouldn't put that weight on the bar yet. Or on the flip side, like, all right, man, like, you're ready. If you want to try it, you're good. You're ready to do this. So
Agreed.
Yeah.
We have a few other topics that we want to talk to that are very relatable to what we've already talked about. And I even think some of these topics that we've just discussed now are going to kind of creep their way back in. So thank you guys for listening. Mike, we're going to see you for another few episodes. And that was a great way to start it. Thanks, man.
Yeah, dude, for sure.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Herd Fit podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.